Hi, and welcome to Xperienz.Club showroom. Hi, hi, hi. This is our very first seminar in our auditorium, and I would like to introduce and welcome CirrusXR. And let's hear what he has to say. Hello, and thank you.
Yay, what an intro. Love it. Thank you. It's not like we practiced that at all, is it? Okay, guys. Hello. GM, GE, GN. Good night, good morning, good evening, everyone from around the world. All that jazz. We're in the metaverse. So cool. My first time to actually give a seminar talk like this in the metaverse. Usually it's more interactive with digital nomads and things. So I'm just realizing I'm going to be talking for about 15 minutes, and I was like, oh my God. So we'll see how we go. I want to make this as useful as possible for you. So before we begin anyway, just want to remind you what it's all about, why we're here. So we're going to be looking at design thinking and how we can use this framework to design metaverse experiences. Um, I'd like to thank Edge, first of all, as well, and Xperienz.Club for inviting me here. Thank you very much. And for Lisbeth, all your help and support as well, getting this together. So let's start. Okay, so I just want to give a little background about who I am and why you should be listening to me. So I'm an award-winning entrepreneur. I've founded several startups and using design thinking and applying human-centered design principles to solve user needs through digital experiences. I just recently finished a master's in creative digital media and UX user experience. And for my thesis and my major project, I designed and developed a VR wellness app for passengers in flight, so on a plane, and which I'm going to reference throughout this talk, this Elysium project, just to highlight some examples of how we can apply design thinking to our projects. Okay, so what is design thinking? Some of us may know what it is, but just in case, it's a way of thinking, first of all. It's a mindset on solving problems. So it's a non-linear process, and it's an iterative process as well. And it's all used to understand users and to challenge assumptions of what we think, a problem is or something we're looking at to solve. So it helps to redefine problems, and it's good for creating innovative solutions for customers, and our customers being our audience in the metaverse. So it has five stages to this. First, and we'll go through these, throughout the whole thing. Empathize, empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So they're the different stages I'm going to go through as well. Okay, so why is it important? Why do we need design thinking? And what can we do with it? Okay, well, first of all, 95% of all products and services end up in the trash, in the dustbin. And why is this? And the simple reason is because nobody has even asked the users if they wanted it in the first place. So why is it important? Okay, well, Tim Brown, who's the CEO of IDEO, he describes design thinking as a human-centered approach to innovation, which draws from the designer's toolkit to integrate the needs of people, the possibilities of technology, and the requirements for business success. So when we think of business success in this scenario, we're talking about our audience and our products and what we're doing here in the metaverse. But also, it's a useful process to foster innovation and generate creative approaches to understand user needs and create solutions that meet these needs. So you'll notice that there's a lot of emphasis around understanding user needs. So this is what the whole thing is about. We need to understand our users, our audience. So how can we use it? And who has used it? Well, it's used from the smallest design teams. It could be just one person. So the smallest startups all the way up to the tech giants like Google, Apple, Adobe, Airbnb, all these guys to solve problems. It's a really useful way to tackle ill-defined or unknown problems, so which are also known as wicked problems. So these problems are these kind of problems that change a lot. They're in flux. They have a lot of changing parts, and they seem unsolvable. So these problems require a deep understanding of all stakeholders, all the different people that are using your thing, your product, your experience, your virtual world, whatever we want to call it. It's all the same thing. We'll use rapid prototyping and mood boards, journey mapping. These are all the tools that you can use in this whole process. I'm going to look at a few of them because there's a lot, but we'll look at a few anyway, just so it gives an idea of what's going on. It's also a useful source of inspiration. It encourages iteration, which iteration is when you do something, you learn, and then you do it again, and you do it again, you do it again. You're constantly learning. That's an iterative process. So we do that automatically. A lot of us do that anyway when we're building stuff. We build something and then we show it to someone or a few people. They say, okay, that's good, that isn't, and then we do it again. That's iteration. So all this stuff is useful with the aim of discovering who our customer is. And that's what it's all about. Who is our customer? What is their pain points? So pain points being what problems are we trying to, do they have basically? And how we can address them. Okay, cool. So essentially there's three lenses. So three things we consider when we're looking at design thinking. And three of these are the end goal basically of all this, of this whole process is to satisfy three criteria. So what do people desire? That's the desirability aspect. Is it technically possible to build it? The feasibility. And is it profitable? Viability. Okay, so how can we apply this process when we're building things in the metaverse, whether it's worlds, whether it's animations, whatever it is? So this is design thinking for the metaverse. So I think it's important. Sometimes when we're in the metaverse or creativity in general, there's a tendency to think that we're immune to all these kind of concerns. You know, that, oh, we don't need this stuff. We don't need to know this process. We just build it and they'll come. Yeah. And the thing is, this could be a world we're talking about here, an avatar, an animation. But the thing is, what evidence do we have to say that anyone will visit our world or wear our avatar or use our animation? So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at what proof do we have that it's needed or meets anybody's needs at all. So it's easy to think as well that what we make in the metaverse is not a product or a service, but it actually is, and this is a fallacy. So everything we're doing here is everything we're making here is a product. So the thing is, wouldn't it be better if we could establish if it's needed before we spend all that time and energy and money building out these things? And this is where we get the 5 stages. It's a 5-stage process in design thinking. So we need to think of our creations here in the metaverse as such, really, as within this process. And we need to look at them as a process to solving problems. And these problems we're solving, it could be information we're providing, education, entertainment, or simply just an experience, a thought-provoking experience. Okay, so in the end, we're offering a solution to our audience. And by using this design thinking process, this framework, we can establish a process for our building and improving our experiences by knowing what the problem is we're addressing and then coming up with the best ways to tackle them. So at this point, I just want to also just to emphasize that this process is a non-linear process. Okay, so it means that the stages are not sequential. We don't go from empathize to test in a straight line. They're not sequential and they're usually repeated. So again, it means that it's the 5 different phases doesn't go through A, B, A to E in a straight line, right? So, but it goes back and forth and it takes all sorts of directions and it folds in on itself and it comes back and you start again. Okay, so first of all, so what is the first phase? It's known as empathy. So it's when you empathize. This is about researching the problem. It's about putting aside our assumptions and getting to the root of the issue we're addressing and the needs of our audience. So in the metaverse, again, we can think of this need or solution to our audience's problem as the experience we're offering or the message we're delivering. Yeah, and it can be useful to think of it as a story and how best to tell that story. So like film or literature, or any storytelling medium, the manner we tell the story, it can change based on the tools we have at our disposal. So in the metaverse, we're fortunate to have the ability to tell stories in whole new ways. So we can craft really fun, super fun, engaging, exciting interactions that enhance the story while at the same time immersing our audiences. So the opportunity to give audiences a role to play in the story we're creating with where their actions matter this is revolutionary, and it's something that most other mediums can't offer. We're also, I think, sometimes guilty of, in the metaverse, of believing that everybody is our audience. That, and this is wrong, I think. We actually have specific audiences, and we need to figure out who they are, what they need, and how we can meet their needs. So in this phase, in this empathy phase of design thinking, there are research methodologies we can apply. So from qualitative to quantitative methods. So these are surveys, user interviews, ethnography, and also data-driven design experiences. So for example, my example is gone. So when I was designing the Elysium app for my master's, I initially identified that there are many people who are afraid of flying, but that's clearly too big and too broad. So from using research methods like surveys and interviews, as well as market research, so desktop research, secondary research, studying the market, I was able to quantify how many people are afraid of flying, how many are anxious flyers, but also why. What is it that causes the stress? So from there, you go to the second phase, which is define. So this is about, once we've collected the data, we can analyze the information to make sense of it and to define our problem statement. So that's basically our design challenge. What is the problem we're looking at? This helps us to consolidate our understanding of what it is we're building, what problem we're addressing, and then also to help us keep focus on the solution. At this stage, it's also helpful to create user personas. So this is basically, it tells the story of who our customer or our ideal customer is. And also scenarios are useful tool as well to depict users to real life situations, to outline the problem they have, and which makes it more tangible for us to understand what they need. But here's where we get creative in the ideate stage. The aim here is to think of alternative ways to see a problem and identify innovative solutions. So this is the fun part of the process, and it should be, because this is where we brainstorm and we let our creative juices flow. And there's numerous approaches and tools available. So for example, there's mind mapping, crazy eights, to rapid ideation. I'm not going to go into them because they get too involved, but I will be sharing these slides, and you can just, delve deeper into mind mapping and these different tools of how you can brainstorm. They're really useful. So it's also good to have some kind of structure on these sessions. So it's like setting time limits, and in order to think of as many ideas as possible. So the key here is speed, and it helps you refrains from editing or criticizing your ideas and just letting it happen. Okay, so it's important to encourage in these sessions. I mean, it could be by yourself or it could be with other people, and sometimes it's much better with other people as well. It's important to encourage out of the box and wacky thinking. The crazy idea, the better. You never know what can come from it. It's also good to keep things as visual as possible. So sketch out things like that. And I'll go into that a little bit more. So yeah, so for example, if we have an idea for a virtual world, for example, we can sketch out the map of it, identify what features will meet our users' needs, and how users will interact with the elements in our world, and all the while keeping the user's needs in mind. Again, it's all about the user, your audience. What is their problem? What's their needs? And designing things to match their needs. So it's useful for sketching out user interface elements as well, which is basically how the user will navigate through the menus or different options. This is my early stage designs of Elysium, the VR wellness app I did for my master's and major project build. This just shows like random sketches of things, just ideas, getting them out as quick as possible. So so I would have gone through many different ideas at this early stage. Some elements made their way into the final version, while others were useful. Some were thrown away, discarded completely, and then some just they were useful to develop further ideas. So in the Crazy Eights method, which I just mentioned, this is a method where you draw. The idea is you sketch 8 totally different ideas of how you can meet your customers' needs. So it makes you think fast, and the idea is not to overanalyze your ideas, which is very important in this early stage. So imagine a piece of paper and you have 8 little boxes, and you just draw 8 sort of different ideas. You're looking to come up with as many different ideas, not ideas within the same theme, but different ideas, completely different ideas, if you know what I mean. This helps just generate as much ideas as possible, as opposed to just choosing the first thing that comes to your head and just going with that. So phase 4 is prototyping. So this is all about experimenting. It's the experimental stage. So after identifying a possible solution, so basically coming from the ideate phase, you have as many ideas as possible, and then you ultimately you do have to choose one. so you go with that. You go with the one you think is best. So the goal here is to build a scaled back version of that idea, though. The idea is you don't build it all at once and everything. At the prototype stage, you want to just keep it simple, and yeah, you just want to keep it as simple so so you can build it as cheap and as quick as possible. And you just implement the core features as well, the main things that are at the heart of this whole idea. All the bells and whistles and all the glitz and glam, comes later. This prototype stage is just to keep things really simple so you can test them. So what we're focusing on is a prototype so we can aim to get it in front of customers as quickly as possible. And customers, again, being our audience here in the metaverse. So we want to keep it as basic as possible, as I said, which enables us to change things quickly as well. And that's important. So it's effectively rapid prototyping. Again, it's that iterative process, and which simply means our designs improve every time we do them. And we learn from each iteration, each cycle. So think of it like a wheel turning. This image here. And think of it as a wheel turning. So every time the wheel goes around one cycle, one revolution, we know more than we did about our customers. We know more about their needs, their likes, dislikes, and what it is that's attracting them to our product as well, or to our world, our creations. And then we do it again. So for mobile and web apps, for example, you'd start your prototypes as low fidelity as possible. So basically low fidelity just being the basic outline. Sort of wireframes, essentially. It's like the shell of your experience. And it purposely looks bad as well, so you can change things quickly, and so you don't get over precious about any specific feature. So you keep it lifeless, really. And this is important because we don't want to think of colors or textures or anything like this at that point. We want to just focus on the core functionality. So in the metaverse, you would translate that to the core experience of what it is. test that first. And then the aim of that is to learn what the audience thinks, what our customers thinks, and we get valuable information for that. So for example, with the Elysium VR app, so at the prototyping stage, I started this with paper prototyping, so drawing out the world and the different elements, and then storyboards to map out the flow of the experience, so how people interacted with the world and the outcomes of their interactions. So this was essential. It was essentially like writing a script or creating a movie set. And so when I was happy with these results, I started building more higher fidelity, so better quality prototypes on the spatial platform. And the strategy was to apply spatial as a sandbox, really, to prototype features and then move all this onto a custom app. So eventually I built this app as a standalone custom app on the MetaQuest headset, and I essentially use spatial as a way to experiment and to see and to test what people like and don't like, and what was working, what is work, and essentially trying to understand what your audience wants. The final phase of the whole design thinking process is testing. So the aim here is to test with real users, and that's important. You need to identify who is your real audience. So at this stage, you're kind of getting an idea of who your real customers are, but you don't really know yet. So this is why this whole thing is iterative, that it just goes around a few times until you get it right. So yeah, the aim here, we want to learn and gather as much information as possible. So we want our designs to be flexible as well, as like I was saying. We want them flexible so we can allow for changes. So we're not looking for perfection at this point. Our goal should be to figure out what users think about our experience. Is it meeting their needs? Where are the blockages? What is working? What doesn't make sense? So we're looking to get as much information as possible, and we should not be afraid of criticism either. So this stage needs to be seen. It's an opportunity to find out what users really think about your product. So there's no point building a world or an experience that nobody wants. So this is an opportunity to find out what they really think about your product. And you don't want to be precious. You don't want to be afraid of negative criticism. You want to know what is working. So we test, we learn, and we amend. That's the whole purpose. So, and just to backtrack a bit, so this is also where the whole process of design thinking, it folds in on itself, like I was saying earlier. It's not a linear process. So we test, we learn, and then we amend, and we do it again. Sometimes the definition changes. So the define part of the process, where we think we understand the problem statement, or we understand what we're trying to solve or fix, or just to build for our audience. And this can change. And then we learn that our solution isn't even needed sometimes, or we learn that we're in fact actually meeting a whole other need. And these are all great results. We've got information. That's our purpose here, just to get information. And we ideate on more solutions. So we start again and we build more with the information we have. So it's an iterative process. So ultimately, the focus is to be open to what data comes from the process, so we can build the best possible experience. And ideally, by the end of it all, we won't be one of those 95% that end up in the trash. So thank you very much. I hope that was useful.
We clapped. Thank you, Cirrus.